everybody. This is William Del Pilar, and welcome to Fired Up Conservative Talk. And we're diving headfirst into some explosive stuff today. So strap on your heat shield because we've got two massive legal battles on deck that are lighting things up. But first, we will have a few words on the rumble in not really the jungle, but the Oval Office between Zelensky versus Vance and then Zelensky versus Trump. And you're seeing some divided opinions out there, but every analyst I have seen when broken down is breaking it. Zelensky did not look bad. Then we're going to talk about the South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson leading a posse of 18 states to crash Dr. Fauci's pardon party. Yep, Biden might have tried to shield him, but these states are saying not so fast. They're digging into his COVID-19 moves. They're alleging misconduct that shredded the public trust, obviously, and they're not backing down. Then we've got Elon Musk Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, and that is under fire with over 70 lawsuits slamming it as a data-grabbing monster. It's funny how they don't do that for any other person working in the executive office. They're claiming privacy violations, but I think it's a genius move to cut, waste, and expose grip. When you hear the hate about this, my friends, spoiler alert, it's because they don't like Trump. And the Trump admin's fighting back, but the critics are loud. And then we get to break all this down with a legal heavy hitter. But then we'll also lighten it up as we analyze, well, I want to say the rumble in the jungle again, but this fight is between Dan Crenshaw and Tucker Carlson. And then we'll close it out with our ever-growing popular segment, Fired Up. But first, before we get into all of this, make sure you bookmark grumblingsmedia.com where you can find this podcast and others like it. You can also find our podcast at YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, and Pandora under the handle Grumblings Media. And before I introduce them, I see Randy's going to join us. It looks like our producer here is going to try to get him on. And he's a legal powerhouse. Randy Berholtz is his name, and he is the secretary of the California Republican Party since 2019. This guy's not just fighting the good fight in the deep blue state we call California or California. He's a San Diego-based attorney, a biotech CEO at Rancho Santa Fe Bio, and a two-time cancer survivor. God bless him, who's bringing grit and smarts to the table. With a Yale Law degree, a Rhodes Scholarship. We have our own Rhodes Scholar at Fired Up, people. Take that, Clinton. He's Rhodes Scholarship from Oxford and over 20 years in law and venture capital. Show me the money. Randy's here to break down the legal chaos we're unpacking today. And with that, let us welcome our panel. It looks like we have some technical difficulties with Randy. John, I'll let you work that out. G, I may have you take over the show and intro the Ukraine thing so I can help Big John by passing him Randy's phone number there. So yeah. What are your tell the audience what happened and then let's get right into it.
Well, so this is the show Fired Up, and it's not just this house that was fired up. It was the White House today that was fired up. Zelensky came and showed up and said basically, hey, I'm ready to do a deal. We want to trade our rare earth minerals for your money and maybe a peace deal. But at some point, it seemed like Zelensky had said before the press conference that he did not want a ceasefire. No ceasefire, no ceasefire. So where's the peace deal? If you're just saying no ceasefire. And so when they actually got in front of the media, Zelensky decided to take that opportunity to take it to the American people right in front of Trump and Vance's face and make the case that, no, we need to keep fighting. Here's some pictures of children who have been killed. It's all Putin's fault. Will you condemn Putin, et cetera, et cetera? And after about 50 minutes of Trump and Vance actually taking it on the chin a little bit, but it was still pleasant up until Vance says, no, we need to try diplomacy. This is a time for diplomacy. The time for war is over. And Zelensky had enough. And he started to lecture the president and vice president. No, this is not the time for diplomacy because we've tried that. I don't know what his end game was except for more war. And where does that land us? So that's
Yeah.
the synopsis of it.
And with that, before we go on, let's welcome Randy. Randy, I gave you a grand old entry, and you didn't.
Oh, you did. It was wonderful. I hope I can live up to it.
So do we. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So real quick, Randy, we're going to talk about the blow up in the Oval Office before we go on. I just want to spend a couple of minutes on it because we got a heavy show with you as a premier guest here to help analyze and break down a lot of the legalities of Doge, of the Fauci situation with the AGs. But what are your quick thoughts? Were you able to see what happened today in the Oval Office?
I was, and look, I just want to preface this by saying I'm part Polish, and so Poles and Russians don't, we don't go together very well, right? Look, Donald Trump is asking all the right questions, and he's demanding that the person that the leader of a country who we're giving $350 billion to show some respect. Wear a suit. Come on, don't just wear like I mean, I've got my sport jacket on here because I was thinking to myself, I can't come on here with something in black again, But look, when you think about foreign policy in America first, America is both the leader of the free world, but at the same time, we're not chumps. And what's important here is that if we're given our money, we want to have somebody be appreciative, and we want them to understand that we give our money for a purpose, and that's not for the Ukraine to give it to its oligarchs or anything else. But I think the president made it very clear. He's not, President Zelensky is not dealing with President Biden anymore. He's dealing with President Trump. And he's dealing with President Trump, who's really mad because President Zelensky really tried to cuddle up to President Biden and also the Democrats. So look, a lot of strong personalities here. Where we come out, where will we come out? I think we'll get our minerals agreement. I think we'll get Zelensky back to the table. But Zelensky has been really embarrassed here on the world stage, and he needs to understand we have the power and we have the cards.
Exactly. And Annette, this was supposed to be a signing of the mineral deal. And it seemed to me that Zelensky had a plan. He showed up with pictures. And thank goodness we didn't see him because they were probably not very kind in terms of some of the horror. And it seemed like he was trying to sway the media, and he was trying to lecture Trump. And I think Vance had enough of it. I got confused. I said, well, why did Vance jump in? And then it dawned on me, well, he was trying to get Trump to condemn Putin. And Trump's role in all this is as a mediator. And I think Vance had enough of that. What was your take in terms of, because it was fine until that point.
It was. I watched all 50 minutes of it, or maybe 55, and thought, when are the fireworks going to happen? Because it was going along rather well. And I think Trump was trying to be patient. And he was saying, listen, and Trump was saying all along, I want peace. I know people are suffering. I don't like people to be dead. I don't want more people to die. So he was getting that point across. I really like JD Vance. The one thing I didn't like today with Zelensky started to get ornery. And when Vance said, I haven't heard you say thank you. Okay, for me as a diplomat, I think that's probably my strength as a human being. I like to have people at peace and accordance and all of that. I felt like, why didn't he just say, I don't hear you being very appreciative? But the way he said it, I thought JD was being a little nasty. I did. I took that.
It's not that. Real quick on the thank you.
Sure.
Now, there's a story that came out, was reported by NBC, that Biden had it with that. Like he was just demanding, no thank you, no gratefulness. And as Randy pointed out, hey, we're giving you all of this. And do you think JD just felt, hey, he's a petulant child. He just keeps asking and demanding. And now he's trying to use the media to sway Trump and goad him into condemning Putin. I'm just asking because I think that's how, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but that's kind of how I saw it. But you saw it differently.
No, I think it was interesting to watch it play out between all these powerhouses. All their body language was fascinating. Marco Rubio, too, if you watched him. Pete Hegseth, too, sometimes sitting like this, sometimes really leaning in. And in the conversation, you're like, oh, my gosh, what is he thinking right now? So I thought all of them, and Trump sort of let JD take over as the bulldog for a second. He was listening. He was saying he wanted peace. He wasn't going to be taken, he wasn't going to take the bait by Zelensky. So it's fascinating to watch it all, but I just want America to listen. We're going to win. Trump said it. We're holding the cards. You're not. What can the guy do now? I mean, really, if we're not supporting that war, it's a big problem. So he's already got him sort of by the balls. Sorry to put it that way. He sort of does, though. He's going to have to come back to the table. I see that. I don't see how, Europe does need to step up more. He made really good points, Trump did. And he said, we're holding the cards and you're not. So I don't know why Zelensky got the way he got, but I just felt like at that moment, instead of like turning the knife a little bit, we could have said, listen, this just doesn't seem, I think they could have still saved it right then.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying? Maybe they could have saved it. But am I wrong?
Oh, go ahead if you have a question.
You're not wrong. I was just going to say that every time a woman says that they got us by the balls, I always just end up crossing my legs. Sorry. Your thoughts on what Annette said, and what is your take on the situation that happened?
No, I think the context is that they had a meeting before the 55 minutes, and clearly in this meeting before, behind closed doors, Zelensky said there will be no ceasefire.
Yes.
And then they come out in front of the media, and then they have this really nice press conference. And Trump was gracious. I mean, he was tapping Zelensky's knee and making some jokes.
Yeah.
On the heels of this contentious behind closed doors meeting. And so at some point when Zelensky kept coming to the media and saying, yeah, here's the pictures, here's the dead children, I think JD Vance, like Annette said, was starting to have enough. And then all of a sudden, Trump, near the end, just finally had enough himself. And he said, look, I'm trying to accomplish something here. And we can't do that if I come out and say Putin bad or Zelensky bad. We're just trying to bring everyone together to the table and talk. So that was my take.
Yes, and to your point, G, he was being gracious. He's like, oh, no, I like his outfit. He was still trying then. Like, oh, I'm cool with what he's wearing,
Well, the outfit thing, my take on that was that's kind of a backhanded compliment because there was one advisor in the background who did ask at some point, how come you didn't come here to wear a suit? You're meeting with the president of the United States. You're not wearing a suit. So I think that was a backhanded compliment. So my take on this is he will come back, hat in hand, suit on, Donald Trump tie on, and he's ready to negotiate whatever minerals we need and a peace deal.
There was a point, guys, when JD started talking. Trump didn't look confused, but he was like, where's this going? And you saw his facial reaction. He's listening. And then he immediately turned around to Zelensky because he understood what JD was doing. And he kind of let JD. I think JD, they keep talking. Even this early, guys, they're talking about who's 2028, who's jockeying for position. I think JD has the early lead with this America First. Randy, I am Latino. My country was created by the Great White Fleet. When Teddy Roosevelt sent the fleet down to Colombia and said, you will allow these rebels to create their own country, and thus Panama was born. The United States has had a hand in the aristocrat family that lorded over us. Then they selected Torrijos, and Manuel Noriega ended up supposedly killing Torrijos. But my point being is the U.S. has had a direct hand in my country. And I'm trying to, because I don't know if you're going to agree because you're Polish in this, but I view this whole Ukraine situation, and Annette Ross, a little teaser, her and I are going to do a mini podcast this weekend explaining what happened. I view, and we're going to go into the 90s. You don't have to go 4,000 years, 2,000 years deep for this. But my point is going to the 2014 coup, it was a pro-Russian government that was working with Russia to help give them Crimea back. We helped stage a coup. We helped install the next leader. And then Russia invaded Crimea anyway. Instead of negotiating, they invaded. And my whole issue is I always viewed us growing up as a child in Panama, America, the great savior. They brought the mighty dollar to Panama. They helped my relatives out. And now as an adult, I take a seat and I'm like, wow, what I'm trying to say, Randy, is I think we had a hand in where we are today. Russia invaded. I'm not defending Russia, But at the end of the day, that coup, I think, kind of created a domino effect. And Zelensky still wants unconditional peace at his terms, or he wants to keep fighting. Is there any way you can see Zelensky's no ceasefire and keep fighting and they win?
Well, look, I guess a couple of things. As President Trump mentioned today, President Obama was in power in 2014, and President Obama, we still wonder about President Obama, with his deals with communist parties and everything else. And the truth of the matter is, he was either asleep or he was, in cahoots with the Russians at that point. Just remember, everything everything the Russians say about us, President Obama, was everything they say about us is sort of true to them more than us. So look, the Russians, what the Russians need is a good punch in the face, right? Because that's, somebody, I guess, in international political affairs once called it realpolitik, right? And that's what the Russians know. They're crude. They're crude, aggressive people. These are people who, who rode on horseback to dominate people, in that region for years. The Russians don't negotiate, right? You have to have a leverage on them. I must say, the one thing the communist Chinese know, and the Chinese know, is this whole battle for leverage. We in the U.S., we're so four-year oriented that we don't understand that the leverage you do beforehand sets you up so that you don't get into bad situations. Truthfully, the only way to take back the Crimea is to send B-52s over there and to take back the Crimea. The Ukrainians are not going to do it by themselves, no matter how much we help. Right. As J.D. Vance, I think, said, and as President Trump said, get real. Zelensky, get real. You're either going to take it over, you're going to kill Putin, or the like, but don't prance around like some, some little Napoleonic dictator right now. You don't have any cards. What are your cards? You're barely hanging on. You've been acting like a dictator because, you claim you're in a war economy. But the truth is, the Ukrainians are corrupt as any Eastern European. And believe me, I know Eastern Europeans. They're so, a lot of these people are ex-commies. They're so corrupt. That's just how they do. As Zelensky said himself, we're supposed to get 350 billion, and he can't even account for it all. Come on.
Exactly. I brought that up earlier. All right, guys, we got a heavy show ahead. I just wanted to touch base on this, but give me your thought. And G's going to have to leave us. He's got a previous appointment, but he just loves this show so much, had to get on it at the early minutes. But that said, I want to hear your thoughts at this image. It is the Ukrainian ambassador as Zelensky, in my opinion, was digging a hole. We'll start with you, Annette.
Where's the image? Okay.
Can you figure out which one?
Yes, I can.
Your thoughts on that image as Zelensky was talking. That is the Ukrainian ambassador.
She's flabbergasted. I don't know. She's despondent. I don't even know what the word is. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Randy, your thoughts on when you see that image, Ukrainian ambassador as Zelensky spoke.
I think she's realizing that her guy blew it, and if he doesn't right the ship, can probably, his country could go by the boards. That's the truth of the matter.
I'll give my thoughts before G. When I see there is no, stop, no. That's what I see. As you said, Randy, is the ship is sinking. The more words he speaks, the deeper that hole gets. And I think, honestly, guys, without being silly, this shot will go down in history like the Vietnam shot of the child with the gun in his head.
Agree.
That's how. That's how I don't want to say important, but that's how monumental that shot is. G, you get a final word before we kick.
Yeah, I would love to know exactly at which moment in the video she did that. But yeah, that is she's seen this before over in her country with whatever meeting she's been in with him, and she's thinking, here we go again, and this war is going to go on for much longer. That's exactly what she's thinking.
All right, guys, hold on. I lied. Final question. Make it real quick, though. How do you see this playing out? Do you ultimate peace or Europe takes over? Annette.
Ultimate peace. I think Zelensky will come back.
Randy, sir.
Ultimate peace and minerals agreement. And elections in Ukraine.
That's exactly how I see it, only because he doesn't have a leg to stand on. Europe doesn't have the money. The next best player in the game is Germany. They've only given $12 billion to our actual 100 billion documented dollars. Trump keeps saying 350 billion, but in my research, I just have found 100 billion documented. But still, 12 billion, 100 billion, Europe cannot support Ukraine. Peace will happen, I predict, in 2 weeks. G, you get the final word on this topic, sir.
Yeah, I think he's going to come back with that Trump suit on. He's going to bring a deck of playing cards because he told Trump he's not playing cards. And there will be a peace deal signed. I don't know if in 2 weeks, but at least within a month. And we'll get the mineral rights, exactly what all you guys said.
Exactly.
So I got to run.
Bye,
Thank you
G.
for having me on.
So long, G. All right, guys, let's dig on. I wanted to get into a fun topic here before we got into the heavy stuff. I don't want to spend a lot of time, just a few minutes on it. But it's the Tucker Carlson Dan Crenshaw spat is a lightning rod in today's conservative landscape because it's pitting a populist media giant in Tucker Carlson against a congressional war hero who has become a polarizing figure. And the clash was sparked by a hot mic moment on February 24th. That kind of opened up old wounds because these two guys don't like each other. And Crenshaw, in essence, said, if I saw Tucker Carlson, I'd kill him. Randy, your quick thoughts. I'm going to try to pull up the video here.
Sure. Look, Tucker Carlson is a graduate of La Jolla Country Day here in San Diego. So, he does go, he is a bit of an elitist. Tucker could get under your skin if he's right. That's just how he is. Crenshaw, though, if Crenshaw wasn't a Navy SEAL, I'm not sure people would actually be, voting for him. I've met him. I've heard him speak. He came out against Trump. He's come out against a bunch of conservative stuff. So I'm not sure he's in our camp anymore. And, not saying I think he's going to switch to the other side, but, he's somebody we need to watch because, he's not as conservative as he probably used to be.
Exactly. Annette, before I get your response, let's check this out here real quick.
Sure.
And courtesy of GBN, Great Britain Network.
Have you ever met Tucker?
We've talked a lot. If I ever meet him, I'll find the
There you have it. That's it. I'll bleep and kill him. Uh-oh. To the producer, can you pull that off? I seem to have lost control of this one here. There we go. Thank you, sir. Annette, your thoughts. First of all, we all can agree a congressional representative shouldn't be saying that. But in his defense, it was a hot mic moment. Your thoughts?
I hate that kind of talk. I really do. I can't stand it. I would just say two things. One, I agree with Randy 100% that him being a Navy SEAL is propping him up right now. That's what he's resting on, is giving him some credibility maybe with some people. And I'd also say that I think it shows that Trump's in office, but there's still a lot of angry people out there, from even among those who are conservatives, which is interesting because there's some friction in the party, I think, and I found that more interesting than anything else. But I abhor that kind of talk, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm not. There's certain decorum you need to carry. I remember for us Latinos, we look at decorum when you're in certain positions as godlike, meaning if you're a doctor, you're a lawyer. And granted, I come from a dirt poor family. I was blessed middle class because my parents moved to the States, but my whole family's dirt poor. So they look at these type of figures. I don't want to say godlike, but like that's something you want to aspire to. That's something you want to be. So to hear that talk is not quite what you want to hear. I will defend him. It was a hot mic moment. Carlson has trashed him. But to push back a little bit on you, Randy, not in a bad way, but yeah. I don't think he was ever a conservative. I think he was not part of remember the Tea Party movement, 2009, 2010? There were a whole swath of so-called conservatives that got elected and immediately turned, meaning they weren't really conservative. They used that movement. I think Dan Crenshaw used the fact he was a Navy SEAL, highly revered, highly respected. I'm a conservative too. He even had a great conservative commercial for his reelection with Rob Smith out of Massachusetts, jumping out of a plane and all that. And then he's shown his true colors. He votes with the rhinos, the establishment, whatever you want to call it. And I'm sorry, I'm a small government guy. I believe in conservative values. I believe in being kind to you, teaching you how to fish. You become a proper constituent that can help our country. Am I wrong to look at it from that? And Randy, I think I know your answer. I don't think Dan Crenshaw is that person anymore, if he ever was.
Yeah, and as Annette said, though, too, there's a certain decorum. And look, President Trump sometimes has it, sometimes doesn't. Let's just be honest. He's your grandfather who gets nasty sometimes. I think he was trying to be polite today, and Zelensky just got under his skin. Not to say it's bad to do that sometimes when somebody gets under your skin, but what Crenshaw's got to act congressional. Act like you're, and he's probably a dad. Act like you're a father. Take these childish games. If you feel like that, make sure the mic is off. Okay.
Oh yeah. Again, I'm not defending them, but man, how many politicians have been caught in those hot mic moments? Annette. So before I get to you, I want to show this this image here. He was also called out on Twitter. Dan Crenshaw, did you threaten to kill my friend Tucker Carlson? LOL, no. Community notes, Dan Crenshaw did in fact say that if he ever met Tucker, he would kill him. I mean, it just got worse. My final question to you two on this topic, and then we'll start with you with your comments on him denying it and getting caught out. But do you think this can affect his future? Do you think, because Elon Musk is threatening the primary, and look, I'm telling you people, and Randy, you can chime in on, because you're in the system with being a part of the party. I think somebody like Elon with worth $800 billion or however much he's worth, primarying a district is child's play for him. He has all the money in the world to do that. I think this puts him in potential danger of being primary. Your thoughts? Yeah, look, fortunately or unfortunately, money speaks in our system. And it's like President Trump. If you have President Trump's endorsement, you have a good chance to get elected, in certain districts. And I don't want to say Elon Musk is like George Soros. He has more money than George Soros. But Elon Musk is not just the richest man in the world, he's one of the most powerful men in the world. So I wouldn't get that guy mad right now, unless you have somebody else who has as much power on your side. Exactly. I apologize, Annette. I meant to go to you, and I started talking right there. So what are your thoughts on the fact he got called out? I mean, you said you don't like this, and what are your thoughts on him possibly being primaried? Well, then he doubled down and lied. Yes. That to me, that's a stain. You know what I mean? I put somebody through. I know politicians lie. William, we have these conversations about human beings all the time. I know people lie sometimes, but that was obviously a moment that was like on air, and you know what I mean. And he could have. So the fact that he lied about that, I just found that to be. I was befuddled by that. Yeah, I think it could have, for sure. You know what? It's hard. It is hard once you start to lose ground with people to try to get it back. Once people start to say, he doesn't really maybe have that much integrity, then the Navy SEAL thing can only go so far. So I think it could be in danger. Yeah, for sure. Oh, I agree. Look, this is a feud. This feud's a snapshot of a movement at crossroads. Populism rising, the establishment's fading, and Carlson's walking away with the crowd because he has the mass crowd support. So I truly think this is an issue for Dan Crenshaw moving forward if Elon chooses to target him, and I'm sure he'll confer with Trump. Any final words before we move on, Randy, on this one? Crenshaw has to watch out. He doesn't want to become the next Adam Kinzinger. Right. And, and he's got to watch out, and he's careless now. And the Trump train is coming through, and the Trump train is really, it's helping the nation. But at the same time, there are some
people who, are coming after certain people because they have been. I mean, nobody was more wrong than Donald Trump and his family and the entire nation between 2021 and 2024. I mean, we are just totally wrong. And, what I like about President Trump that he's doing is he's settling some scores.
You know what? This is politics. It's ugly when people who accuse Trump of that. I'm like, well, what were your issues with every previous president? And Trump's actually very forgiving. People hate to say that, but
Yeah.
Hate to hear that. But I mean, he didn't go after Hillary Clinton. And he's going to do it the legal way. He's going to, I'm sure Bondi and Patel, they're going to bring up, but we need to stop this. I try to tell people, look, if they did it to Trump, they'll do it to you. In Panama, we saw this through two dictators, and any immigrant will tell you one of the main reasons they flee this country is because of dictatorships, authoritarian governments. They come here for law and order, a legal process. And I think Crenshaw's aligning himself with the wrong people who may be establishing Republicans, but they were okay with what the Democrats were doing to Trump. Annette, you have the final word on this topic.
Well, thank you. I just think the public discourse we have to do a little bit better, because what happens is when it gets like this, the substance of an issue gets lost.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let us move on to Fauci's pardon party. States line up to crash his day of reckoning. So we're going to dive into what I view as a groundbreaking legal showdown, and it's being led by the South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson, who earlier this month in early February, he rallied a coalition of 18 state attorneys to investigate Dr. Anthony Fauci's role in COVID-19 response. So despite a federal pardon from former President Joe Biden, the states are charging ahead. They're alleging misconduct, and they're saying that shattered public trust, and I believe it did. And they say it may have broken state law. So today we're going to unpack it. We have our Rhodes Scholar with us to help guide us through all of this. So real quick, I start digging into Randy and his expertise. Annette, your thoughts on Dr. Fauci being investigated by state AGs?
Well, I'm super excited to have Randy here because actually, when you asked me my first thought on this, I had a question. Actually, my first in reading this and getting prepared for tonight was, is that legal to do once he's been pardoned, Randy? See, I didn't. Yeah.
So maybe we take a step back a little bit. So we are the United States of America, right? Mm-hmm. And the power lies in the states. The states give certain power, to the federal government, and those powers are, part of the Declaration and the Constitution. Essentially what we give to the federal government, and they're normally either enumerated powers, like for example, defense, immigration, or the federal government has typically jurisdiction when issues cross state lines, right? Mm-hmm. Right. When they involve either disputes between the states or issues that are predominant across state lines. So if anybody's interested in actually limited government, we really do have a federal system. So when you think about that. So what is a federal pardon then? So a federal pardon, there are two parts to it. One is that pardon is typically done to somebody who has been convicted of a crime.
Right.
What we have here is something in the future. I mean, it's like, or I guess a future prosecution for a past crime. Well, why the hell do they need that if they're not guilty, right? I mean, I don't get that. But secondly, then. A federal pardon is typically only for federal crimes. So for example, anything that happens within a state that doesn't cross federal lines or that is not part of the enumerated powers, a state attorney general has the right to prosecute. Now the question though is, what do you do when you have more than one attorney general, right? That sort of looks like it's sort of federal, right? So great question, and the Supreme Court is really trying to, take this issue by issue here, to see what this means. But I predict that by the end of the President Trump's term, Congress and he will probably come up with some legislation that will limit the presidential power, the presidential pardon power, to probably crimes, crimes committed and convicted.
I think that's needed too for anybody. There's too many times both sides have pardoned people. You kind of shake their heads, and then when you do a little digging, oh, they're a big donor, or they're related to a big donor, or they're aligned with a big donor. It's sad to say, but money is what runs the world. So they're looking at holding them accountable through state charges. Now, what state charges can they hold him accountable for? If he was working for the feds, representing the feds, all this stuff was on a federal level. I mean, how does that break down? I guess what I'm asking is, how are the courts going to look at everything you just told us?
Right.
We understand. So how do the courts look at it?
Right. So look, two types of law, right? Civil and criminal, right? Two types of litigation, right? So, and then you have, causes of action, right? So in my understanding here, in this case with these state attorney generals, is that what they're looking at is damage that has been caused to citizens in their state because of bad behavior by Dr. Fauci, who I think was head of the CDC at the time, right? So and I think there are three main contentions here. I guess one that Dr. Fauci lied about the origins of COVID. Two, what he did then too was sorry. I guess so the first one is origins. Second one, I guess then is the U.S. participation in this what's called gain of function research, and the third one was then really about prosecuting, about going after people, and saying that any questions they had here was misinformation or disinformation. So. That's pretty much how it's broken down.
So I had in here, based on my research, they're going to count on a lot of federal subcommittee research and investigation. How does that break that down into? What I'm asking is, if it's done for the whole country, how does South Carolina or Louisiana break that down into? Hey, this was our specific state. I assume through examples. That, and if everything goes and they're able to prosecute him. Mm-hmm. Does this open the door for civil lawsuits against him?
Well, I mean, it should. Yeah. Because I would assume the attorney generals are going under criminal statutes here, But I'll be honest with you. I'm surprised there hasn't been a class action case across the world, essentially against the Chinese government or against Dr. Fauci. Because I mean, look at all the suffering that 3-4 years of suffering that the world has gone through here. So.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I look at the 9/11 and the families and all the lawsuits and every president shutting the door on that. It seems like a futile effort. Plus, the politics of where China stands in the world today seems to have our own side that has been accused at times of aligning themselves with China. It's just not going to help out. So, what's the timeline do you see for this, Randy? It's February. How's that timeline going to work out?
Yeah, courts take time, but back, I think, to your other question about the evidence from the legislative group, that the congressional group found. Well, evidence is evidence, right? So it doesn't matter whether it's coming from a federal source. I mean, evidence is evidence. That's the facts, right? So any lawyer would actually use that, So, okay, I don't want to say this is a first in kind of lawsuit, because when President Trump was in before, the Democrat attorney generals got together and sued, and during the last 4 years of the Biden administration, Republican attorney generals did the same thing. So it seems like this is this is becoming more commonplace. But as far as timing goes, frankly, what you have is a prolonged discovery period, and that can be anywhere from 3 months to 9 months to 10 months to 12 months. And then after that, what you have then are pre-trial, motions and the like, and typically once the discovery period is over, that's when you get summary judgment motions and the like, and then both parties will prepare for a trial or the like. So I'm sorry. So this is at the district court level right now, and so district courts are the main trial court. So what you have to have first is a trial. Then once you get the verdict on the trial, then you will have an appeal by one of the 11 circuit courts across the country, and then after that it goes up to the Supreme Court. So sometimes it's possible to take a case to the Supreme Court sooner, but I would assume that these cases are, if there's not a settlement in the case, I would assume here that this is anywhere from a year and a half, could be 4 years here.
That guy's so arrogant. I don't see him having a settlement at all. So, Randy, I'm sorry, Annette, do you have any questions for Randy?
I do have a question for Randy. Randy, I think what disturbs me about this, and so many levels, but one of the things that disturbs me a lot is I got to meet Francis Collins a couple of different times. He was running the NIH, that. Now he's not anymore when all of this was going down. He's one of the nicest people I met, in medicine. He was mapping the human genome at the time. I went to a few panel discussions he was at. I got to meet him personally a couple of times, like at a luncheon. But I just, and I know he's not Anthony Fauci, but I know he's been in a lot of the conversation too. But when we get back, and I just thought so well of him. When we go back to Anthony, I think about these guys at that time. What in the world would have been a motivation to hide something like, we know that that's where it began, or the gain of function research that was happening, or we do believe, or we have good reasons to suspect that this was let out of a lab. You know what I mean? And that's how this began. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I think there's, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, nobody would do that, right?
Well,
What's
I've been in the pharmaceutical business probably for 20 years, 25 years, as both a lawyer and a businessman. Mm-hmm. And when you see how the sausage is made, mm-hmm. and you get a good understanding as to how people can hide stuff or the like, and during a time of international health crises, people react differently, more dictatorial. But I my own view is that there is no doubt in my mind that this came from the lab. And I knew the first day, and I've studied outbreaks, for hundreds of years. I studied, various, outbreaks over that time period. But when I was, do you remember when this was first thought to be because of some type of animal soda?
It was like a bat or something. I thought first.
Yeah. But then when you found out, right next to that, to that night market, 100 yards from there is this research facility. There was no doubt in my mind that this came from.
You think that Anthony Fauci knew that too?
Yes, I think there was no doubt in my mind. I think the CIA knew that. Everybody knew that right across the board.
Oh, that's upsetting.
I have no doubt in my mind that they've all known that. If not, they're the dumbest people in the world. It's like an F troop or something.
And they would perpetuate a lie.
Yeah. Secondly, I think.
Are you laughing at me, William? That is upsetting. To me.
Well, no. Secondly, I think what happened, from what I think the U.S. had some deal with the Chinese to do gain of research, work, mm-hmm. and I see what the U.S. tries to do is the U.S. tries to have these outlets, these sort of monitoring places throughout the world for various type of infectious diseases, and I think some research was being done at that lab that may have been partially paid by some type of U.S. grant. I think Fauci was very, was told that would not look good, at all. So I think he was trying to cover his butt on that one. And then thirdly, I think this is one of the biggest cover-ups in history. You know, when they started to go after people, I studied the polio vaccine, and the polio vaccine has good stuff and it has bad stuff associated with it. I've studied the reasons why we get the MMR shots. You know, the reasons why we get the MMR shots is not for any type of medical reason. It's because people in the countryside in the United States couldn't bring their kids in for 3 different shots within a certain time period. That's why they gave them all at one. And I think one of the problems there was people didn't realize at the time that you don't give a kid 3 different vaccines at one time. There are some kids that something's going to happen to, right? But I think one of the biggest crimes, of humanity right now has been going against those people who have different remedies for COVID and that, and for and making people who didn't get the vaccine feel like outcasts. I think that was one of the biggest crimes in history, to be honest with you.
And Annette, I was laughing not at you. I mean, I told you earlier how my country was created. World War II. We all know about the Germans and experimenting. What we don't know about is the Japanese did the same thing. We have the black service members in Birmingham. Given we have soldiers being told walk 10 miles this way in the radiation fallout. It is human nature to experiment. As a child, I was like, oh my God, those poor little mouse. It's our human nature, right or wrong. In this case, mostly bad once you look throughout history. But that's what I was chuckling at. You have so much faith in humanity, where I'm the exact. It's not that I don't have faith in humanity. I feel I understand the dark side of humanity, and we haven't made all this progress without doing some dark things to get there. And I'm not accepting the dark things, but we don't have to go down that road. Is my point. Just sit there and do that. Go ahead, Randy.
But if Fauci is innocent, why was he pardoned?
Oh, exactly.
Why was he pardoned? So there's something's going on here, and President Trump is trying to be transparent here, but more than likely Anthony Fauci is not a good guy.
Right, and he wasn't pardoned just for the last few years, but all the way back to 2014.
Yeah, interesting.
We all have heard the horror stories of Fauci with AZT. My brother-in-law, he died of AIDS, and he went through that whole the whole drug issues back then. God rest his soul. But that said, let us keep moving here. Great information, Randy. Great insight there. And so we dug into South Carolina's big swing at holding Fauci accountable. So let's pivot to another wild legal showdown. Elon Musk Doge. He's getting hit with lawsuits over its alleged data grabs, and that's sparking privacy fears. Never mind, this has been going on for generations in terms of how the government works. But could this also be a move to stop Doge from exposing how the money gets grifted? So let's jump on right into it. I have a lot of notes here, but I just want to jump right into the first question. Doge is has non-agency status. It's lacking formal congressional creation. Can it legally sustain its operational and data handling authority under Trump's XO, Randy? Or does this structure inherently violate the established governance norms? Man, I sound intelligent.
You do sound it, but that's because you are intelligent. Yeah. So, okay. So the way I look at this is that, yes, you're right about an agency and everything, but the president of the United States has the ability to, he runs the executive branch of government. The way I'm looking at this is that the president has essentially hired Elon Musk and previously Vivek Ramaswamy, in this entity called Doge, which Congress has to, Congress can make it more of an entity. Agencies, commissions were set up temporarily. Then agencies are sort of more permanent than a commission, and then you have departments. But so in the way I look at this, and I think the way some courts are looking at this, is that the president has essentially hired a consultant, Elon Musk, and the team that they've put together to go through and to do an audit of the books, the books and records of all the federal departments to see what's there. Frankly, in my view at least, every president has that ability to do that. You either do it through the OMB or the General Accounting Office or the like. But so from an executive standpoint, what do you want the president to do, right? So I think the second point, though, the Democrats are bringing up privacy and security, and so that's got a dual-edged sword, right? On the one hand, they're right. Certain information like social security numbers and federal income tax for certain people, right? And health conditions, like HIPAA stuff. There are privacy. Anyone looking at those records from a federal government standpoint has to abide by certain privacy standards. I haven't looked at Elon Musk's consulting agreement, and I'm sure he probably has one. But as a consultant going in there, I think he may be officially an employee, but as either a consultant or an employee, he has to abide by certain rules. Now the question is, though, is anything he's doing, is that causing a harm? Is that causing individuals a harm? And if you notice some of these cases, the federal judges have said, the entities complaining have no standing, right? And no standing means there's no perceived harm to them. So that's my sort of overview, I think, of the situation.
Randy, what about a situation like myself? When I was in the military, I was temporarily assigned to a medical facility. I had access to everybody's records. I was just not even from that section in the military. Then I got out, but I had a temporary job with the VA, and they put me in the records section, working for all the VA records. So I had all access to all this. I guess my question is there are millions of us in the government doing this type of stuff. What in terms? What makes us different from why? It's like Elon, to me, it's like the same thing. It's just different type of a setup.
Oh, I agree. And as we said, just in your role or his role as a federal employee or a federal consultant, he would be violating criminal statute by utilizing any of that proprietary information. It's the same as if you're in a private company. You're in a private company. Whatever you're viewing is owned by the company. And there are certain safeguards you have. So
okay,
yeah.
So you answer that. So looking at it from old way to new way. So the Privacy Act is 50 years old. How do you see the courts or how courts are applying it to Doge's modern data grab? Meaning, how does it fit? Because it's different.
No. Yeah. Well, it's different. It's the same at the same time. But I think what the courts are doing is they're saying, okay, he has an obligation to promote privacy. How do you know he hasn't done that? Right? And what's the cause of action? What has he leaked? And they're saying, well, he's leaked the fact that this entity owned by Stacey Abrams, nonprofit got a $2 billion grant, when it has $100 in the bank. Well, is that what's assumed to be private? No, bad behavior is not private, right? So the government grants, are not private. Money that the government spends is not private. Somebody's personal financial information, that's probably private. Somebody's personal health information, that's probably private. But the things that Elon Musk is talking about on X and other places, that doesn't seem to me to be private.
So yeah, no, I agree. So let's take a quick break here.
Sure.
We're going to get back to the serious question with Randy, but a legend was born out of all this, rising like a phoenix after they killed him the first time. And his name is Big Balls. Let's start with you, Annette. When you heard about Big Balls and then you heard CNN commentators, let's be honest, there's something awkward about a former television anchor on cable going, and Big Balls, Big Balls, Big Balls. Your thoughts on Big Balls, Annette?
William, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Big Balls was an individual named Marco Elez. I graded it out of your notes. I wasn't going to talk about it, but we're getting kind of heavy, so I just want to lighten it up. And they went after him. I guess he did some terrible tweets early on as a kid.
Oh, him. Oh, yeah.
And
He's the Doge employee, right?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
See that.
Doge, and they went after him, and Doge rehired him. It's more of a joke. I'm just poking a little fun. What are your thoughts of cable TV? I mean, we're so out there now. You're hearing them say the term penis. You're seeing them say this, But there was something odd. There's a video of every anchor out there just saying big balls, big balls, big balls, big balls, big balls. You can put it to Benny Hill. What are your thoughts on where media has gone today with big balls?
Mine? Oh, mine. Big balls. You know me, William. I can't even. That stuff is lost on me. I can't even take that kind of thing seriously. Like it doesn't like resonate, and I probably just hear it and kind of ignore it. Are you asking me more like, do I think it's like denigrates the conversation in some way, or we're getting into
whatever your opinion on it. I'll start off with my opinion.
Yeah.
My opinion was, as an ex-sailor, it's legendary because I laughed at it. I thought he made a mockery of these CNN, these MSNBC people. They had to say it. Their hatred for Trump and everything, Elon. They said it because they just wanted to get at him. He did this, he did that. And honestly, in the military, I heard from blacks, Latinos, whites, these type of comments. Most of them said jokingly. Whenever somebody said it seriously, they were taken to the mat. So you kind of handle it. I think this kid's tweets, he made a mistake. Vance came to his defense, Musk came to his defense, and this problem went away. Meaning the media did not pursue it, which tells me this was much ado about nothing. They were trying to make a target out of it, and he became a legend instead.
Well, no, then you gave me my answer. They're going to have to do better than that, is my answer then. Once you sort of gave me some context. Go ahead.
Yeah. And just a quick on that, if I could. So look, we sort of laughed this one off, and Musk and Vance came to this, a 24-year-old kid's defense. But I don't know if you've seen recently then where some ICE agents, in personal information has gotten out because these lefty, anti-ICE people, are doxing them and everything else. So I'm sure the president will probably protect the identity of of anybody working for the federal government anymore, because the left are bullies. And they try to go after people individually. And the good thing is they're not in power, so they can't use that anymore.
Yeah, they're desperate though. They're just desperate.
Yeah, they're desperate.
I'm sorry. It's just as a sailor, I'm like, big balls.
You love your sailor commentary, your sailor narrative.
Because you know why? At the end of the day, we sailors, we're pigs. We're just young, dumb males with only two things that we think about: beer and women. But I have always viewed that's just a natural progression into maturity. Our hormones are driving us, and we're too stupid to think properly at times. And it's a process of life. But we actually learn from that. You learn, like, I don't want to treat women that way, or dude, why are you treating women that way? Or you just see so many things from movies happen in real life. So I think I was blessed. I was born and raised in a different country. I joined the military. I did a startup. I worked at nonprofits. My life was in danger in an international incident almost once. Fingers crossed. Thank God we got our engines working. So it's just, I view all these life situations, and then when I see them played out, I feel, I'm not saying I'm right, but sometimes I can just cut through the BS and I understand what's really at play here and how they're trying to make something political. So I'm like, Doge or Big Balls, you were an idiot. You should never have put those tweets out. But I've heard worse in the military, and we self-police, and then we grow and we mature, and we realize we can't be stupid, and life is more serious than how we play it at that age. So that's kind of how I look at it. And we're kind of getting deep. I mean, great analysis, Randy. I just wanted to light in the moment there before I
that's okay. No problem.
You've evolved, William. You're evolving.
There you go. So, Randy, there's so many lawsuits, over 79, my last count the other day. They tend to be going this way. We're stopping Trump, and then the higher court will overturn it. And even the Supreme Court stepped in because an Obama judge sat there and said, you will release these funds within 24 hours or something like that. And Chief Roberts stepped in and said, no, you don't have to release them. At what point does the Supreme Court step in or how does that work? And they go, we're just consolidating everything and we're going to hear this. I assume there's a process for that.
Yeah, and let's just first of all say this is what the Democrats do, and they think they're good at it. It's called lawfare, and we have a major Republican now who is going to be the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dillon, who understands the lawfare very well and is one of the major players, on the Republican side now, on the governmental side, countering what they do. But you're right, though. When this, you see, typically the Supreme Court comes in either when there's a dispute amongst the circuits, and then it gets bounced up to the Supreme Court, so the Supreme Court can decide, or the issue is so important for the parties or the country. That the petitioner or the aggrieved party will first go to the appeals court, but then will go to the Supreme Court quickly for an injunction. So that can actually happen pretty quickly sometimes.
I mean, so give me
it can
your
happen
time.
a couple of days. It can be a couple of months. But if there's something that's if there's a situation like you said with the release of funds, so the aggrieved party then can go to the Supreme Court and say, hey, look, we'd like an injunction here. That's when the Supreme Court can act pretty quickly. The problem is the Supreme Court, they're people. There are nine justices on the Supreme Court, and the sad thing is they just can't take a lot of cases. But what may happen here is that the district courts the district courts or the appellate courts could potentially, bring certain cases together, if they're dealing, with the same issue. So, I would think that if anything, because DOJ is so important, I think for the government right now, that I think there's a good chance that these cases could be amalgamated together at some point, especially if they're dealing with the same issues.
I agree. So the final question, and Randy, I hope you can stick around. We're going to end the show, and then we're going to jump right into our hot takes in the clip format.
Oh, sure.
But final question of the night for both of you is, do you think, because I see blatant bias by activist judges, and we're at a point in our government, in our culture, in our history, where I'm really wondering, are we close to seeing the eventual impeachment of one of these activist judges in Congress? Because correct me if I'm wrong, Randy, my understanding of history, only the Supreme Court is the only thing that's in the Constitution. Every other court below it is a product of Congress. So Congress has that right. Am I looking at it wrong?
I think you're right. But look, I went to Yale Law School. Yale Law School is supposed to be the best law school in the country, supposedly, and it is the most liberal. And I have never seen such a politicized place in all my life, to be honest with you. And it's really made me realize what law is. And, and it's a shame because, law is supposed to be, unbiased and that. But, what I see coming out of there and, in most of the Democratic appointed judges, I mean, the truth is it's not law. It's politics. It's politics disguised as law.
Well, do you see a potential impeachment, or do you think that's just me having a pipe dream?
I think, if you look, and I'm a member of the Republican National Lawyers Association, and I've been one of the main advocates for fighting back here against Democrats and liberals, lawfare for a long time. But I think at least one judge will be impeached. I think as a signal to other judges, you get out of hand here.
Exactly.
You're going.
See, that's what I see. I'm like, you do one, it's like I always tell people, because I come from a country that was created a revolution. In a revolution, to get law and order, you take out one or two judges, and all the rest of them will start following the law. And I think the same process here. You impeach one, and the rest of them, because these are some, I don't want to say cushy in a bad way, but these are mostly appointments for life. So a judge is not going to risk that when he knows he can be caught on the mat. Annette, your thoughts? Do you think we see that?
Yeah, I think it needs to happen. Whatever happened, doesn't Lady Justice, isn't she blindfolded?
Yeah, point. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
So it won't happen. As much as I want it to happen, I don't think it will happen. And I hope I'm wrong. And with that, guys, Randy, thank you for coming in. You've explained You know, so that's a wrap on Fired Up, and it's been an interesting ride. A lot of ladies, and we
Cool
all
stuff.
Yes, you know, and it's necessary stuff. Look, I'm an ex-sailor. Sure, I like Kim Kardashian's butt, but I'm more concerned with what is happening in this country. And my point in saying that is, Annette looks at me, is it seems like they're concerned with what's happening in entertainment, reality TV, than what's really screwing us locally at the state and at the federal level. So this was very good information from South Carolina's state-led charge against Fauci, which I hope it succeeds, to Doge barreling through a storm of lawsuits while the left clutches their pearls. And let's not forget a heavyweight street throwdown between Dan Patches Crenshaw and Tucker former Bowtie Carlson. It's clear the fight is not over. So my friends, we're going to continue bringing you the unfiltered truth. So thank you for tuning in. And again, before I go, I'm going to add to like and share this podcast. And don't forget to bookmark grumblingsmedia.com and check out our work at YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, y Pandora. You know, that's the only time I get to throw out the Latin accent. Y Pandora. Under the handle Grumblings Media. Stay fired up, and we will catch you on next time.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.